Da-da, dum, da-da. Welcome back to another amazing video on my YouTube channel, and as always, I am just so privileged and honored to be before you on this day. And so, yes, in the previous video, I was talking about how blessed or how much of a blessing I found this trip that we just had. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's the video that's right before this one. All you have to do is check it out. With that said, there's a high chance you haven't subscribed yet, and I would ask that you like, share, and subscribe.
So please whatever.
As I was saying in the previous video, I had talked about how much I found that trip to be such a blessing, and it really, as always, got me reflecting, and that is why today's video is going to be about some tips on how to make that difficult decision. So I believe life is like a summation of the decisions we make. How we eat then affects how the level of health we have. Who we choose to marry then affects the person we choose to be a father to our children or a mother to our children. Yes, what we study then affects the choices we get to have when it comes to careers. By that I mean, for instance, I am a developmental analyst. I study development studies with sociology, so it doesn't mean I can walk into a hospital and cut somebody open. Even if I've always had the desire to be a doctor, the decision I made with this career means I have certain limitations. So basically, a decision or a difficult decision it's like a resolution. It's, a path you choose after careful consideration, right? Yes. And so for me, I was so appreciative when I was on this trip, and I was telling my husband and my friends and anybody I was interacting with to say it really got me thankful for the knowledge that I have and the systems that I have in place when it comes to making certain difficult decisions, right? Okay, allow me to give you a bit of a story time. So like I said, I live in Kasama. That wasn't always the case. I am born and bred in Lusaka, and yes, so along my relationship journey, yes, I was working in Chongwe at a certain point, right before getting married, right before getting engaged. I was working in Chongwe, and my husband was then posted here for work. And in the beginning, it wasn't such a big deal. That was like January last year. It wasn't really a big deal because it's like, what, it's whatever when the time comes, right? But I'm such a planner, so allow me to drop the first tip, which is pray about it. So I went back home and I began to think about it, to say, okay, but what if, because everyone was like, don't worry, he could always they could transfer him somewhere else, it's not official. And I went back home and I'm like, no, but what if this thing is official? What if that's where he's going to be? Aside from that, he's my partner, I want him to be happy. What if he's happy there, And so I remember then having a prayer session, and I'm just talking to the Lord about these same concerns. And I'll never forget the Lord responding to me saying, I will provide. And it was just an immediate peace. And I immediately knew to say, whatever decision I make, I'm not stranded, I'm not alone, and the Lord will provide. He'll provide resources, He'll provide support, He'll provide anything I possibly need to live a comfortable life. Yes. So I remember as time went by, and he was then official. It was like official. He was here, and he was insanely busy. I could never get a hold of him. Okay, I could never is an exaggeration, but you get my point. And I then thought about, I began to bring up the conversation, and everyone felt it was so premature. Yes, so allow me to get into the second step. So it would be like a combination of a story time and some tips, right? So number one, I said I prayed about it. Number two, pitch it before your circle. Like pitch it before people who actually love you, know you, and care about you. Like they want your best interests. So I remember I called my mom, I called some of my closest friends, and I mentioned my best friends, rather, and I mentioned to them, like, okay, so this is a situation, and this is where my head is at, and they already know me. They know Kili likes to think way into the future, and again, I'm grateful for it. And so I was just like, okay, so these are the pros and cons and stuff, and it was a lot of mixed signals, of course, a lot of follow your heart and all of that stuff. Which brings me to the next point. Pitch it before an objective, independent source, but someone with similar values with you, right? I don't mean just go to some random street and pitch it to someone. When I say objective, objectivity is about you're not being coerced by something else. I gave an example of my best friends, my family. I've lived with them my whole life. So there was a huge part of their advice being, what about, you'll be all alone. It's so far. Like a bunch of people I could tell, like, okay, they're just not used to me being away. So in a way, they are being subjective. So I needed an objective source. And my number one objective source is always my mentor. I really feel like I just love how he thinks. So for me, I would say pitch it before an objective source, because it will give you the weight. So imagine it's like a beam balance, right? And it will help you know, like, there has to be something this side and something this side for you to actually truly test the weight. Otherwise, if you only put something on one side, you get what I'm saying? So I would say pitch it before an objective source. And then finally, I would say think about the future impact. So for me, when I was in this valley of decision and I'm trying to navigate how I'm going to go about this, oh my God, my job, my this, my that, my home, like how do I know nothing about that place and all of that stuff. I then began to think about the future impact. Number one, I really felt this overwhelming peace when the Lord told me he would provide, and I felt him. We had then objective conversations, Lord and I felt like I pitched a few things to him, like, okay, listen, this is and that, and he really helped me come up with my pros and cons list, right? So I believe that's how you navigate future impact. You write the pros, you write the cons, like, okay, in the next 5 years, what happens if you make such a decision, such as myself, and the person is transferred in a month? How do you work around that, right? So future impact. And I began, the more and more I, assessed, the more I felt like it just did not make sense for us to live apart. And I'm very proud of my decision. I'm very proud of myself, and I'm very proud of the fact that I did utilize these steps, because at the end of the day, you are the person who's going to face the consequences. Allow me to give another example. I've had very interesting, beautiful conversations with a few ladies ever since my recent development. And okay, ladies and gents, and yeah, so I'll be asked concerning, okay, so I don't want kids. What made you want kids? What made you want kids now? Why didn't you want to wait? Like all of those things, right? Those are the things, the reasons we have to make a decision, because there's all of these options. And yeah, so in that, I remember the first thing I usually tell people is, but you're the person who's going to bear the consequences. If you decide to wait to have children until you're financially stable, I'm putting quotes because it's subjective. Everybody it's relative. It depends on you what level you feel like is financially stable. Yeah. So if you wait until you feel like I need to build my career first, so I need to work like 5 years, especially on the female side, I don't know. I would always say, when you're making such decisions, do your research. When you're making a difficult decision, do your research. Actually know your body, like do some tests. It wouldn't hurt for you to know where you would be at that point. Then again, pros and cons. What's the impact of my decision? What if I have, this? Then the pros, I could conceive twins then and there, right? At the end of the day, you will face the consequences. So if you end up having a challenge, then these things will be back in your mind. Oh my God, I wish I did it sooner. Why did I choose this? Which leads me to my next point. After the fact, after you've made the decision, then what? How do you remedy? Like, how do you live after you make the decision, right? Number one, remind yourself why you made the decision. I gave an example of, I was actually saying one of the biggest cons for me and why I chose to relocate with my husband is because of our schedules. We are both insanely busy people. And so I felt like I'd never get to build the quality home I've always wanted, the quality friendship I've always wanted. When he came here, aside from work, there was the whole aspect of running a church branch, and it's beautiful. I love it, and I wanted to be there. I wanted to do all of this with him, and it was Christina's decision. And if you notice throughout all of this, I called my stakeholders, as I called them. I prayed about it. I wrote my pros and cons list as Christina, and then we had a conversation. I didn't just call him and say, do you want me there or do you want me here? No, I knew I'm going to have to face the consequences. So when I came here and there's no hungry lion, I remind myself of why I made the decision in the first place. I am honored and blessed that I get to wake up to my husband every day. I'm honored and blessed at the family I've been given here, the things I have learned, the talents I have cultivated, or things that I've learned about myself, because this is one of the first times I've been on my own 2 feet, and I'm very, very proud of my decision. Also, he has a very busy schedule, like I said, and this literally would have been the trip if I decided to stay. This is the only time I'd have seen my husband, and I think we had like one date, and then when we went to Zambia, that's when we finally spent time together. We were busy. We came to Lusaka to work. It's why even the vlog is, I think, a little mini, because I had so much to do. He had so much to do. So I really wouldn't ever see him or grow that relationship. And for me, I love spending quality time with the people that I love. So I remind myself why I made the decision. And this trip was another reminder, like, you know what? I'm proud of the decision that I made. Number 2, like I said, you'll be the person who would deal with the consequences. I always remind myself of that. Like, someone might sweet talk me to say, no, listen, girl, get up, get your bag on, and then at the end of the day, feel completely empty on the inside, or feel like we're working. Like in the relationship, you're always just working, you're dragging. And then what am I doing all that for? So I knew I'd be the person dealing with the consequences. So whatever decision I make should be something I can manage, something I can handle. Lastly, I would say support. I mentioned that some of the people in my support system felt that wasn't really the decision I should make. It doesn't even matter, because when I finally made my decision, they knew either way they were going to support me, and that's why they're in my support system, right? So when I came here and maybe I'm having a bit of a hard time finding something, they would, okay, let me call somebody I know, let me help you do this, let me do that. I still get beautiful help. They still assist me by sending me stuff from Lusaka, and I'm like, oh, this isn't here, could you put it on a courier for me? Very beautiful people. I feel like when you make the decision, the last thing you want is to be alone. But sometimes certain tough decisions, for instance, walking away from an abusive marriage, and everybody is like, oh my God, an abusive relationship, and everybody's like, oh my God, why? But he's always loved you. Again, you're the person dealing with the consequences. This person is abusing you. So remind yourself why you did it. You are the one. Remind yourself that you're the person who is going to deal with the consequences. And support. Support comes from everywhere, ladies and gentlemen. Even if you feel like you stand alone in a decision, there's this video right now here to remind you that you made the right choice. What if you didn't? What if it's a bad decision? Now you've learned something. Now you've learned that, number one, again, like I say, pros and cons lists, right? So at least you've learned that, okay, you can make a decision. You can go back now, introspect, think about how to do it better. So don't look down on yourself. Don't beat yourself up. My mentor always says, you don't build up your faith by fighting it. Yes, like admit where you're wrong. Yes, be accountable. Yes, apologize maybe where need be. At the same time, that's what life is. We're learning, we're growing, we're, developing. And the bridge between where you are now, your reality, and your ideal life, where you want to be, the quality of life you want to live, the bridge between that is actually making certain difficult decisions. So trust me, as someone who's on the other side of a difficult decision, it's going to be worth the while. See you next week.